and welcome to another episode of Prefab Fam. We are sharing a microphone today, so I hope you guys can hear us. May is National Foster Care Awareness Month, so I thought for every video that we do, we could just in May, we could just tackle a common question that we get about foster care and try and provide you guys an answer. This week, I thought that we could tackle our most asked question.
Have you addressed my beard yet?
No.
Because the only other time they really, I guess they saw me whenever I was painting. Babyface now.
Okay, if you haven't noticed, Chad doesn't have a beard.
I got a job that requires no beard.
Is that better?
What?
Okay, moving on. Anyways, so I thought we would tackle our most common question that we get, which is why? Why do you guys do this?
Oh.
And normally people have to get a little more comfortable with this before they ask that. They don't just come out and ask.
Although that has happened.
Yes, that has happened. But usually what happens is we meet somebody, for the first time, or we run into friends we haven't seen in a while, and we're catching up on life, and we tell them that we're foster parents now, and then somewhere in the conversation, finally, they get up the courage to ask us, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a really nice way to ask us, are you doing this because you can't have your own babies?
Mm-hmm.
Which is really what they're asking, because people don't realize that foster care can be just a way of life and a lifestyle that a lot of people have, whether or not they can have their own children. So, to clear the air, me and Chad have no idea if we can have kids or not. It's a really personal question. We get it all the time, so I figured I would just put it out there, and then everybody can quit asking us.
We have not tried, so.
The next question is then, then why are you doing this? See, first we're introduced to foster care through our friends Blake and Amethyst, who fostered and then adopted their little boy that they met at their church. That's a whole other video and story. That was really the first time that we were exposed to the foster care lifestyle and to what it was. Me and Chad have always...
Seriously exposed, I guess.
Yeah, me and Chad have always wanted to adopt. That's something we talked about all through dating. I am actually adopted by my dad, so I'm biologically my mom's, but when my dad married my mom when I was really little and adopted me, basically through marriage.
Through marriage.
And then also, Chad's sister was adopted when he was growing up.
And my mom.
And his mom is adopted. So adoption has always been a big part of our life and our story. It's something we've always wanted to do. We had never considered foster care. Honestly, I always thought we would be the people who would adopt, a newborn baby or a kid from another country. That was this very...
That's the glorified
whitewashed
Christianese
version of adoption that I had when we were dating and, the first year of marriage or so. And so the other exposure that I really had to foster care was whenever I was a preschool teacher in a special ed classroom. So 75% of foster kids are in special ed. So by nature, 2 to 3 kids in my classroom every year were in foster care. So I got to know the kids in the system, and
it made them less scary.
Yeah, it made it a lot less scary. I realized, one, these are just kids. They're just kids who needed a home.
They're not the horror stories you hear about these incredibly out of control, behavioral, all over the place children. It's
and there are,
turns out they're just kids that come from families that need help.
Yeah. And there definitely are children who've experienced trauma, who have extreme behaviors.
I think all of them have, in
all of them
very
have experienced
small to a very large degree.
But
taking them from their home is trauma.
Mm-hmm. And depending on the amount of trauma they've experienced and their background, they might have, more behaviors than others, or their behaviors might be more exaggerated or things like that. But, every child has behavioral problems. I have never met a child in teaching or in foster care that has no behavioral problem. After I put faces to the kids in the systems and I got to know them and I got to know their families, their foster families, it was something I wanted to be a part of. And so it was already kind of on my heart and mind, and I would talk to Chad. We were already thinking about foster care at that point for sure. And then our church did a foster care and adoption month. So we were going to a church at the time called New City.
In Albuquerque,
New Mexico. And they did a foster care and adoption month where every week they either had a panel of like foster parents up on stage talking about what it was like to be a foster parent in Albuquerque, or they had social workers, they had a caseworker talk, and they just went over like the biblical basis for foster care. And
they basically pulled all the stops to make you feel extremely guilty for not doing it.
No, that's not true. No, they did not make you. It
worked.
I mean, no, it was not guilt-based. They are an excellent church, and they really, I think, did it right. They really went over, like, honestly, they went over the reality of foster care, what it looks like in real life and not, in Hollywood or the stories that you hear from other people. And they also gave a great biblical background on why foster care is important and close to the heart of God. They talked about the impact you can have on the biological families of the kids that you're fostering and the kingdom reach that you can have within your own city because of that.
Right. Which you do have a lot more interaction with the family of the child than you probably are thinking you will. Because a big part of foster care is also being involved in the reunification process. It's not just the CYFD social workers and stuff like that. It's a lot of it is us. After
all of that, we definitely felt like, oh man, we really think that God wants us to do this. It was something we'd been thinking about before. We had just spent a month learning about it. And so I just remember very clearly, we went out to lunch with our friends one day, Blake and Amethyst, and we kind of mentioned like, yeah, we're kind of thinking about it, but we're not sure. And Blake said, guys, just do it. Just jump in. If you feel called to it, just apply. Anyways, we decided to do it. We just decided to apply and see if we got accepted. And we kind of just prayed and said, if this isn't what we're supposed to do, just shut the door. Like, if, you don't want us to do foster care, just shut that door on us and
you have some time.
Turn us back around.
And it's not like, oh, let's do it, next day you have a kid. Don't get me wrong. It takes a while.
It takes
you
about
have
a
some
year.
time. It takes about 9 months like a regular kid almost.
Yeah, actually it took 9 months. It takes about 9 months to a year to get licensed before you start getting calls for your house, which we can talk about the process of like getting licensed for foster care in another video. That's sort of, I guess, how we got into foster care. And the biggest answer for the reason why will always be that we feel like we have been adopted and brought into God's family, and He has called us to do the same for others, and to not necessarily adopt every child we come across. Every child we've had has been able to reunite with their biological family, which has been an incredible process and journey to be a part of. And it's sad and hard, but it's like so worth it. So
it's a heart-wrenching good time, as I always say.
Yeah, a heart-wrenching good time. So that's why we're doing this. I guess that's all I have for you right now. Let's go make some bread.
Yum.
Alrighty guys, here's what you'll need for the bread. Muesli, all-purpose flour. You'll need salt, half and half, wheat flour, yeast, honey, and water. You'll also need a bread pan and some canola spray oil. So just go ahead and give your bread pan a good spray with the oil and make sure you coat all of the sides so that nothing sticks. Next, you're going to get a mixing bowl, a sifter for the flour, and then you're going to go ahead and take 2 cups of whole wheat flour and add that to your sifter. You're going to take a cup of muesli and add it to the outside of your sifter because the oats can't go through the sifter, they're too big. And then you're going to take 2 cups of all-purpose flour and add that to your sifter as well. This should make a total of 5 cups of flour. Go ahead and sift all of that together, and this process takes forever, so I'm just going to go ahead and speed it up for you guys. Next, you're going to take 2 teaspoons of salt. These are half teaspoons, so I had to use 4 of them. And you're going to add that to your flour mixture. Mix it thoroughly, and then you're going to make a little well in the middle for your yeast mixture after that's done. You're going to take some really hot water, about 1.5 cups, and add honey. I just add a lot of honey because yeast needs sugar and warmth to activate. And next you're going to go ahead and let your yeast activate for about 5 minutes until it becomes bubbly and frothy on top. And while this is happening, I like to measure out my 1/2 and 1/2 and let that come up to room temperature. And I also like to clean up just a little bit. Alrighty, it looks like our yeast is nice and frothy on top and bubbly. So we're just going to give that one more mix and pour it into our flour mixture. And the next step is going to be to just take a little bit of the flour and mix it with the water and yeast until you have something that looks like pancake batter. The temptation here is to mix it all in because it's super easy once you get started, but make sure to just mix enough until it takes on that like thicker consistency of pancake or cake batter. Go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of flour on top of that to give that a nice covering, and then we're going to cover that with just a paper towel and let that proof for 20 minutes. Alrighty, it should be bubbly at this point, and there were some air bubbles in it, so it's ready. Go ahead and mix in the rest of your flour and your 1/2 and 1/2. That should be about room temperature by now. And when you're done with that, you're going to go ahead and take off any jewelry you have and start mixing by hand, and it's going to get messy. Here I realized I didn't have enough moisture in my flour, so I just got about 1/2 cup of lukewarm water, and I'm just going to mix that in until the dough forms a complete ball. Then you're going to sprinkle your counter or your space with flour and go ahead and start kneading that dough. And you're going to knead it until it starts to feel elastic and stretchy, and go ahead and use a lot of flour on your surface to make sure it doesn't stick. When it stops sticking to your hands, it's ready. This could take up to 10 minutes. As you can see, it's still sticking to my hands here, so it's nowhere near ready. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed this process up a little bit for you guys. You can see that now the dough is nice and stretchy and it's elastic and nothing is sticking to my hands. So we're going to go ahead and place this dough in an oiled bowl and cover it with plastic wrap. I hate washing dishes, so I just covered the bottom of the bowl in plastic wrap and put a little oil in that instead of like using a new bowl because I'm lazy. So one of my all-time favorite bread tricks is just to wet a paper towel with some really hot water and lay it over your dough, and it just keeps all of the moisture in as it rises. And this, you're gonna have to let this rise for about an hour. When it's done, go ahead and plop that into your bread pan and shape it into the square shape of the pan, and your dough should have doubled in size at this point, which mine definitely had. Cover that in plastic wrap, and you're going to go ahead and let that sit for another 15 minutes. Forgot to get this next part on camera, but you're going to go ahead and take a knife, slice your dough down the middle, and you're going to sprinkle it with flour, and then you're going to pop it in the oven at 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. Guys, this makes such a gorgeous loaf of bread. It's super easy, it's not very time consuming, and it's best fresh out of the oven with some butter on it. I know you're supposed to wait to like slice it and bag it, but my family never can. It's also one of Em's favorite snacks. She loves to eat it with blueberries on the side. It's full of good nutrition and so easy. All right, I hope you guys have an awesome week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.